Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talk About It with Janet and Marie.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Oh boy, Friday always seems like such a great day, and yet our work as writers takes us right into the weekend so many times. But one of the things that we've been hearing about lately are some of our writers who have been writing about mental health issues. And Marie brought up the point that it's Mental Health Month, right?
Mental Health Awareness Month is
Awareness.
May. That's right. So we didn't want the whole month to go by without
Saying
talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. So my question I want to start off with is, how do you know if you have a mental health issue? So what do you think?
Well, I think you have to get a diagnosis from a good doctor, from a qualified psychologist or psychiatrist. That's usually the standard. But I
Yeah,
do think that sometimes people know before the doctors know or before they start seeing doctors, and they begin self-medicating.
oh,
And
yeah,
that sometimes leads them down a path toward substance abuse,
right.
which is linked directly with mental health issues. You know, it can be
Sure,
very closely linked.
sure. I understand that completely. Yeah. So, one time there was a time in my life where a couple of times in my life where I experienced what I called depression. And I remember interviewing some licensed social workers, psychologists, people, right? And I finally landed with a woman who was very good at explaining to me that it's a chemical imbalance, right? Even if it's an episodic depression, like your circumstances, like when I was raped in high school and I could barely think through for 6 months, that it's an episode of trauma that can imbalance your chemical makeup in your brain, I guess, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the psychiatrist that was associated with this group prescribed to me was for a short period of time to balance the stuff in my head, or the chemicals in my head. And at the same time, she worked with me to identify the source. It was husband number one, but that's a whole nother story.
There's so many layers to all of this.
There's so many layers. But my question, really honestly, is I want to be aware of mental health, but I'm not sure what that looks like. What does it look like to you?
Well, mental health is such I believe something that we really need to do a lot more research about, and to understand the human mind and what makes us do the things that we do. I think we're right at the tip of the iceberg of learning and really understanding as much as we can about this issue. But what does it look like? I think it looks like a dysregulation in your moods and in your self-care. For people who are severely depressed, their hygiene suffers. They just don't take care of themselves
Well, I certainly know that
like
for
they
sure.
once did. And
I'd be able to tell that one right away. Oh my God, my hygiene's slipping.
well, you think so, but it happens very gradually, and the feelings around it are very sad, and it's tough. It's really very, very difficult. So here in Mental Health Awareness Month, we'd like to take a minute to honor the people out there who are struggling through this, kind of invisible diagnosis that you may be carrying around, or maybe not, but we take a minute to respect that. That's not easy to manage that, to get yourself to work every day, to get yourself home, and to smile and put one foot in front of the other. It's not an easy thing.
So a girlfriend of mine once shared with me that her mother was crazy. That's the word she used. That her mom would have episodes where she would be talking to somebody else, not her 8 children. I think I wonder if I had 8 children, where I'd be. Anyway, but her mom was institutionalized in the 50s. And I remember reading about mothers and wives who were hospitalized for mental imbalances in the 50s where they were diagnosed. I know when I went to the doctor that I talked with, they were very eager for me to get well, not be put away. But I remember in the first part of my marriage with Mr. Coercive Control that when I would get so upset with the behavior in our home and around us, our little girl and me, that he accused me of going crazy and threatened me with that, like being institutionalized. And I just don't think it happens much anymore, but I remember thinking, that's not possible, that's impossible. And of course, I went directly to my mother, who also declared it totally impossible. But I wonder about the self-medication part of this. Like if you're not feeling well, I guess in our culture, you take a pill, right?
Oh, in our culture, there's a pill for everything, right? Or
Yeah.
there's a spliff for everything, there's a type of marijuana that addresses any little thing that you got going on, so
I didn't know that.
but a lot of those institutions were closed down because they got such terrible reputations, and people abused the way that they would have people committed, and so the result is that a lot of people who simply need attention and medical help wind up in the jail system, and that's not working either.
And that's not working.
So,
yeah. And then you put
but
coke on top of that, right? Yeah.
yeah. So, and part of what I've been researching too is sex addiction, which is another type of addiction, and it's like a compulsion, and it's not.
I know
As
you
you,
were talking about a book that you had looked at. What was the name of that book?
the name of that book is America Anonymous.
Yeah.
Very interesting profiles of people with different types of addiction. And, you would think like a lot of people would say, I'm a sex addict, wink, wink. Well,
Yeah.
it's not funny and it's not fun. It's a
No.
compulsion to fill some kind of an emptiness that just never gets filled. And you keep going back and trying in vain to figure it out and to cure it. And it's a very difficult thing.
When I looked in that book, I looked inside the book on Amazon, like what approach was this writer taking? He had gotten to a level of awareness about his addiction, and probably through the process of writing, because this was a very interesting, the way that he wrote about it was interesting enough for the reader. So
Yes.
he probably got some coaching in how to list and write and follow himself. So he obviously had a level of awareness that he was in trouble. My question is, how do you know you're in trouble? Like, how far do you have to fall before someone around you or someone close to you or the system tells you there's something way off here? And if you're talking about self-medicating before you know there's a problem, you're just not feeling great, that can make it worse, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. It can make it so much harder to actually reach a diagnosis, because if you have those veils of drugs going on in your system, it's much harder for a doctor to see clearly that, which came first, the chicken or the egg, or which came first, the depression or the drugs.
Yeah.
So it becomes a really muddied kind of thing. Yeah.
So it seems to me,
but let's take a second to talk about what it might have been like for this man to write this book about himself and his sex addiction. Think about the bravery.
Oh gosh. Well, I think about the bravery of all of the people who've ever submitted to Our Silent Voice, our first book, and are continuing to do so for our second book. I think it would be very interesting for someone who has that level of awareness that that they are in the process of figuring out mental health and mental wellness in the face of not being well, who would write their story. Because it seems to me, if I look at this guy and how he wrote, he had a level of awareness about it and probably found writing about it extremely enlightening, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and probably quite therapeutic. I mean, he did get published. And so,
Well, and think about it. He used his writing as a vehicle to interview other people that he speaks about in the book,
yeah.
and that tell their stories. And he made it a way for them to tell their stories as well.
So here's what I think. I think we are not psychologists and we're not psychiatrists and we're not mental health professionals, but we sure know a bunch of them. I wonder if one of the people that we know that are in our network would be interested in coming on, talk about it, and that we talk about this again. And we talk about it with a professional who deals with mental health issues. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Me
And
too.
I also think we're going to write this blog and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we have.
And if anybody has a question or a specific thing that they'd like us to address and research about for this blog, send it to us in the comments and let us know. We're really happy to hear your comments and to hear your reactions anytime. We're listening.
Suggestions.
We're always listening.
And suggestions. I think putting some suggestions in the comment, like we should look here, or we should look there, or we should look at this subject or that subject. That would be very helpful to us as we go through our journey, using this month as a springboard to explore and become aware of, sensitive to, and engaged with the health of our culture and our individuals and ourselves, right?
And our community, absolutely.
And our community, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
again, everybody, happy Friday. Thank you for coming to talk about it.
We love having you with us, and we hope we engage enough with you to make you think differently or more about something. We're going to have a list of resources and links in this talk about it in the comment section. Some, the hashtags that we have, but some other links to some interesting reading. So we'd like you to explore as we explore and become aware of and sensitive to mental health issues. So
Great.
bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.